Hey guys, Sean here at Vulcan Performance, and today we're going to talk about another highly misunderstood topic, and a topic that there is so much conflicting information out there about that I thought it would be good to do a video and give a synopsis of what is the real information out there about it and what are we actually doing to ourselves when we take it in. And that topic is coffee. I know most of us can't go a day without it. I want to talk about some of the information out there about coffee, and maybe at the end of it we'll have a better idea of what is happening to our body, to our mind, our brain, and also to our performance when we're on coffee, when we're off coffee. What is coffee? Well, the ingredient in coffee that we all hear about and all know about is caffeine. Caffeine is the main topic when we think about coffee. And in 1 cup of coffee, an 8-ounce cup of coffee, you have somewhere between 75 and 200 milligrams of caffeine in the 1 cup. Let's just talk about what caffeine does. So caffeine, when you drink coffee that contains caffeine, not decaf, and it goes into your body, caffeine, the molecule of caffeine, acts very similar to another molecule called adenosine. And adenosine is a molecule that as you go out through your day, it builds up in your brain, it builds up in your blood, and it actually promotes drowsiness. When your adenosine is fully built up in your brain, that's when you're asleep. So caffeine resembles adenosine enough so it can actually attach itself to adenosine receptors in the brain. So instead of adenosine going to these receptors and causing you to go to sleep, caffeine is blocking the adenosine and it's going to those receptors instead, making you very awake. Because the adenosine is being blocked and caffeine is upper. So you're blocking the things that causes you to be drowsy and you're replacing it with things that cause you to be really excited and really happy. It takes 30 minutes to an hour for caffeine to actually kick in, and caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours. So if you drink some caffeine 6 hours later, it's still going to be in your bloodstream. It's going to be half as effective as it was, but it's still going to be there, and it's going to deprecate from there. In addition to caffeine, there are some other things in coffee that are noteworthy. In coffee, you have chlorogenic acids, and chlorogenic acids are antioxidants. And the reason why antioxidants, you hear about them all the time and why they're such a big deal is because antioxidants fight free radicals. And free radicals are these highly unstable molecules in our body that can cause a plethora of issues. The antioxidants fight the free radicals. You have cafestol, which increases your LDL cholesterol, your low density lipoprotein cholesterol. That is the bad cholesterol. But cafestol itself can pretty much be filtered out if you just use a paper filter when you're making your coffee. If you do some kind of filterless brew, then the cafestol may still be in there and the LDL content will go up in your bloodstream. So with coffee, let's talk about some of the contraindications for coffee and why coffee could be bad for you. So first off, caffeine is a drug. In 2012, the term caffeine dependence was rated as a disease. Somehow 300 milligrams of caffeine a day has been accepted as the standard of what not to go past. So 300 milligrams ends up being about 3 8-ounce cups of coffee. So 3 cups of coffee a day. Caffeine has been proven to increase your blood sugar. It's been proven to increase your blood pressure as well. So if you are hypertensive, then caffeine may be something you want to stay away from. If you have diabetes, if you have blood sugar issues, caffeine could cause problems with your blood pressure, blood sugar. If you have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or Crohn's disease, caffeine has been shown to increase acid reflux in your body. So that's just another thing to take in. If you're older and you have issues with your bone, maybe you have brittle bones, osteoporosis, osteomalacia, coffee has been shown, or caffeine has been shown to decrease the calcium reabsorption rate. The calcium reabsorption rate, as you know, your bone just isn't a bone. It's constantly getting rid of calcium, bringing calcium in. It's constantly creating bone and destroying bone to keep itself healthy. And caffeine can block this process somewhat. Another obvious one is caffeine can lead to disruptions of your circadian rhythm, your sleeping patterns. And it can have a negative effect during pregnancy, or if you're a woman and you're trying to get pregnant. Kind of the standard for that is you don't want to go over 200 milligrams a day if you're pregnant, if you're trying to get pregnant, somewhere near the same. So like I said, caffeine is a drug, and there are some very negative consequences of drinking excessive amounts of caffeine or coffee that contains caffeine. With all that being said though, what are some of the good things about coffee? So to throw some research at you guys, 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day can reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia by as much as 70%. The consistent coffee drinkers, ones who drink it pretty much throughout their entire lives, have a decreased rate of cognitive decline, meaning their mental acuity, thoughtfulness, their memory, they all decline at a slower rate than someone who doesn't drink coffee. Coffee actually lowers mouth and upper throat cancer by 50%. There's some pretty compelling evidence out there about coffee and caffeine that it actually can decrease your risk of stroke and in general, but they have found that coffee drinkers actually have less risk of cancer, less risk of diabetes, and in general, coffee drinkers live longer. So here's the question for my fitness folks. What does coffee or caffeine do to our performance? The caffeine in coffee boosts fat burn. Caffeine can also cause a shift in whatever energy source we go to. So if you're an endurance athlete, having caffeine in your system actually shifts your use of muscle glycogen, carbohydrate use that builds up the glycogen in your muscles, to more of a fat use. It's gonna shift the energy system over. It's very important if you're an endurance athlete, you're going these long miles, if you're a swimmer, bike, row, run, Ironman, or whatever it is, if you're going these long distances, you need to utilize fat a lot more than you utilize carbohydrates. Carbohydrates gonna burn up too fast. Muscle glycogen is gonna burn up real fast. But fat's that sustainable energy source you can continue to run off of. So the quicker you can get there and start using that, the better off you'll be in a long marathon run. Interestingly enough, with performance, on the RPE scales, your rating of perceived exertion are lower when you have caffeine running through your system. When you have coffee in you, you don't perceive things to be as hard as they are when you don't have it in you, which can be very beneficial in some of the grueling workouts we do. There's been some studies that actually shown that working out on caffeine actually reduces post-workout soreness, even post-workout DOMS that you may develop a couple days later. Coffee decreases general inflammation in your body. It doesn't do much for localized inflammation, but general inflammation and systemic inflammation to the body, coffee can decrease the amount that you have. If you are that endurance athlete and you hear this, you're like, okay, well, how do I use caffeine? It's best if you're going off coffee, that is. And several pre-workouts have caffeine in there. They may be a better source to get your endurance needs than coffee, but just coffee in general. If you're trying to get those endurance benefits, that shift in the energy system, then it's best to drink coffee 2 to 4 hours before your event. It really depends on your tolerance to caffeine. So you need to play around with this, spend a couple days playing around with this before your event. And if you are going to use it for endurance, they tested swimmers, they tested rowers, and they tested runners. And they found that kind of the sweet spot for the caffeine you're getting is 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight. So you really need to know your brew. You need to know, need to read the fine print on a lot of these, on your Starbucks coffee or whatever you're drinking of, and see exactly how much caffeine is in each cup if you plan to use it for performance. Some of the negative effects that coffee can have on performance, though, is that if you drink too much coffee, if you have too much caffeine in your system, you can't relax. You can't calm down. You have too much adrenaline pumping through your veins. You're too jittery. Your accuracy is going to be very thrown off. You may have blurry vision if you drink a whole lot of it. And that's performance on the court, on the field. That could be performance in the classroom as well. If you drink too much and you're real jittery before you take your test, you will not be able to focus on the questions. You may be even seeing double of the questions if you have blurry vision at the time. Some of the detriments of drinking coffee or trying to get your caffeine from coffee is, honestly, if you're about to work out or go perform or do an endurance event, one of the negatives is the fact that coffee is typically hot. You can drink iced coffee, something like that, but the hotness, it raises your core temperature. So when you get out there, it's actually a little bit harder to regulate in certain extents. There are some benefits to having a high core temperature though before you go. You can almost use it as a warm-up, but you just need to be smart about how you use it. And if you drink a lot of coffee, you need to make sure you balance it out with water and hydration. So the more coffee you drink, the more caffeine you take in, the more dehydrated you're gonna be. So you need to make sure you satisfy your body with enough water that you need. So if you're taking in 100 ounces of water a day, but you're drinking coffee as well, you should probably add 10 to 15 ounces of water for each cup of coffee, for each 8-ounce cup of coffee that you have. That should balance it out. So we've stated some good things about coffee, some bad things about coffee, how coffee affects our performance, and really the benefits of coffee for performance, and a little bit of the negatives. And we talk about what coffee is. Kind of my take on it. I think anything that we're dependent on in our everyday life could have some negative connotations in our life. So figuring out where your sweet spot is with that is important. And also with coffee, coffee will definitely affect your sleep, and probably more so how you wake up in the morning. So think about it like this. We know, I told you before, caffeine replaces adenosine on the adenosine receptors of your brain. So what your brain does to kind of combat this is that it knows it needs adenosine, it knows it needs to go to sleep, it has all this caffeine taking up its receptors. The brain creates more adenosine receptors. So therefore you have more receptors. You keep on drinking coffee, that's why you have to drink more coffee, more caffeine, the need that you have, because it takes more caffeine to fill up all those receptors. These are some things you need to think about if you're taking in a lot of caffeine and becoming addicted to caffeine, is that there's a reason why as soon as you wake up, you have to have that cup of coffee in your hand. It's your drug, it's giving you your fix. We're gonna continue to go through the body and learn about it and hopefully find out ways that we can help promote healthy lifestyle, fitness, and better performance. See you guys.